What's good, fam? It's Tuesdays with Tawana. Hey, what's going on? Good to be in the building. I am Dr. Tad, your host and your curator for Tuesdays with Tawana, podcast and vodcast where we build community one womanist episode at a time. I am grateful to be in community with you on today on this Tuesday. There is a lot going on and a lot to talk about, so we are just going to jump right in and get started. I am not in my normal space. I don't have my mic. I am, yeah, I'm here and I'm grateful. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. So, welcome to all you who continue to support and show up and engage in this dialogue because I often say that I do not want to be the one talking for the entire 30 minutes. So, if you just pop your thoughts, your greetings, your concerns, your questions, anything you want to add into the comments, I will insert that into this narrative. For this is truly about community building. Um, I must open up with sending love and light and just holding space for the tragic accident that happened in my area, in near my home. A cargo ship that crashed into the Francis Key Scott Bridge in Baltimore and caused it to collapse, literally like a house of cards or dominoes. It was very disheartening to watch the recording. This happened at about 1:40 this morning. It's a highly traveled bridge, and because it was 1:30, 1:40 in the morning, it was limited traffic, but there was still traffic on the bridge. There were construction workers, there were emergency vehicles or construction vehicles. So I've been at work since the latest update at about 11, so I'm not sure where they are in their rescue and recovery. Last I heard, there were two people that survived and were rushed to local hospitals. So we definitely send love and light to the Be More community. It's just a sad, tragic accident. The cargo ship, from what I understand, lost power, and once it regained power, it was too late. It already impacted the bridge. It already came into contact, and it's just a horrible sight to see. So we are, hey Kurt, always good to see you. Thank you for joining. It's always hard to see tragedies like that happen. As we are witnessing multiple tragedies happen right now, multiple tragedies in Haiti and Palestine, Sudan, Congo. We are experiencing tragedies here in the United States where, and I can't think of the beloved's name that was on the Breakfast Club the other day. You can't drop bombs in bread. That's not how this works. That is not how this works. America is in a position where they could have and should have and still should cease and desist supplying aid to countries that are committing war crimes and should be sending aid, which was just cut to these war-ridden countries. So have to pause and just acknowledge that and insert that into this this narrative. There's just no way to just move past it and move beyond it. Speaking about it, bringing awareness, and coming together to galvanize to make sure that people who are in office for our best interests. And unfortunately, we're operating out of systems that are not a part of our best interests because they weren't designed for us to begin with, particularly the U.S. Constitution. Naming our First Nation, Indigenous, Native Americans as savages, um, and the countless other words and language that is used that does not serve us well. So, hey, brother, good to see you as always. Thank you for your continued love and support. So, as I opened, I am definitely here in a different space. No, nothing. No jewelry, no mic. But I'm representing Harlem because that's what we do up in this place. Represent where I was born and raised. So, shout out to my beloveds in Harlem, of course, representing all day, every day. So, today, we are going to talk about if it weren't for the women. And I don't know, you may, if you missed it, let me just pop up this picture one more time. This is a picture of me and my beloved mother back in, I believe, 1990. So I think I was about 20 years young during that time. And we are closing and wrapping up Black Women's History Month. And as I did for Black History Month, I encourage you to honor and revere Black women 365 days, 24 by 7. Because we are divine, we are magical and mystical, we are human beings, we are nurturers, we are co creators, we are innovators, and should be honored, revered, and respected at all times by any means necessary and at all cost. Full stop. So I want to honor my mom in a way where it has been 31 years since my mom left this realm to become a beautiful ancestor. And I say that with assurance because the life that my mother, our mother, because my brother Larry is on the line on this podcast. Um, I say that because my mom lived a life that was beautiful. She lived a life that was giving and selfless. And even in her profession as a nurse, um, and then left her 9 to 5 or whatever it was at that time, that job for a full-time job to be taking care of her children, and taking care of foster children for 15 years and sent us to church every Sunday. I've been singing in a choir since I was about 8 or 9. She made sure that we were surrounded by divine beings. I sang in the symphonic voices of Sugar Hill with Dr. McNair, and we would travel all over the place and sing. And then I had the honor to go to East Harlem Performing Arts, where one of my teachers, I still call him my teacher, Kurt Forsett, is on the line. And we had a choir, and we would travel to nursing homes and other events to sing. And we sang gospel songs, we sang tunes from musicals. There was just no limits to our creativity. And I wish that was still a part of our lives now. We're living in an age where the arts are being, the funding is being cut or just totally removed. Our time for creativity and play and joy is being reduced. our opportunity to be inserted into narratives that often ignore us and silence us is being dismantled, namely DEI programs and affirmative action and things that get us in the door, not because anyone is doing us a favor, but simply because we have the skills and the academic prowess and the intellect to be in these spaces. And because of racist systems, we do not have an opportunity to sit at the table. So these programs were put into place to ensure that we had fair opportunity to be at the table and to experience these white institutions by understanding what is going on around us and what we need to do to be informed citizens to dismantle these systems. Oh, and the good chaplain, Janetta Toodles Harkington, is in the building today. We have known each other since seminary, since 2008, and my beloved is just still my sister, and I love it. Thank you for coming on today. So, all of these things are happening around us, and I decided to use this time not only to honor and recognize and uplift the challenges, but also to insert some modicum of joy, some remembrance of the amazing. Ah, Janetta, '08 was so great for sure. Oh, yes. Okay, let me keep going because I'll get stuck on '08. Yeah. Yeah, Janetta. So I decided to, since we're at the end of this beautiful Women's History Month, but I call it Black Women's History Month, and we're coming out of a month that many of you know is full of ups and downs for me because this is the month that I was born. What a special month. And it was also the month that my dad died in 2009. It's also the month where my late sister Tina Rose, her birthday, her born day was March 24th. And then my mom, it'll be 31 years in 2 days that she succumbed to challenges of multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the bone marrow. Yes, yes, Janetta, we're going to insert a modicum of joy right now. It's hard. It's hard because we have so much going on, and one may feel a sense of guilt, or like that survivor's guilt, or having a good time when babies are dying and babies and women are being most impacted by these war crimes, and people are being starved to death, which is a war crime. It is full stop. And right now, we are in a month where we are celebrating, particularly for me, Black women who have paved the way, who have set the example, who has inserted um, their skills and their bravery and their courage and their leadership, from the Harriet Tubmans of the world to the Sojourner Truths of the world to the Angela Davises of the world to the Toni Morrisons of the world to the Lucille Cliftons of the world, who wrote "Every day something has tried to kill me and has failed," and invites us to celebrate with them in the midst of people attacking us day in and day out, to the current elected officials who are down for Black liberation, like Representative Corey or AOC or Ayanna Presley or Leslie Herod out of Denver, Colorado, or out of Colorado, or Councilwoman Chantel Lewis out of Colorado. We have so many people like Maxine Waters and other inventors and creators, those that are creating cures for cancer, those that we use a GPS system because of a Black woman. We are birth workers. We are birthing people. We are, and that does not mean that we necessarily give birth, because there are some of us that are still nurturers and mothering and sistering, and creating a space for that divine feminine energy to be salient in our lives, where we become nurturers and we become caregivers and caretakers, not only for others, but for ourselves, so that we fight for the rights of our Black bodies, and for that, so that our Black bodies are not raped and mutilated, here in the States and beyond. Because let me just pause it right here and pause for a moment, that Diddy is now being investigated for sex trafficking, and that sex trafficking includes human beings overall. But since I am talking about the women, we are talking about women that have had the bravery to come forward to say, yes, this has happened. And yes, some have settled out of court, and there's no judgment here, because they may have settled out of court because it is hard reliving your story and retelling your story over and over and over to a system that really doesn't care about you. So, why would I sacrifice myself and my story and my well being and my mental health and my physical health, when I can just take this check and go about my business and heal and tell my story to the world when the world is ready? We are in a space where I can say, if it weren't for the women who spoke out against the misuse of Henrietta Lacks cells, and how Henrietta Lacks was the one who has saved and continues to save countless people who are diagnosed with cancer. If it weren't for the women during the civil rights movement, who were behind the scenes intentionally but still continue to fight the good fight, if it weren't for the women, I would not be here today. The women that I sat under at Turner Theological Seminary, at under the auspices of the Interdenominational Theological Center, Reverend Dr. Jacqueline Grant, or Reverend Dr. Melva Sampson, or Reverend Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin, or Reverend Dr. Carolyn McCrary, or Reverend Dr. Carolyn Habersham. The list goes on, at Reverend Dr. Maisha Handy. The list goes. If it weren't for the Black women that posited in me and taught me how to see myself in the scriptures and not see myself in the white, blue eyed Jesus that Western Christianity tends to teach, and gave me an opportunity to find my voice, to seek my voice, seek and ye shall find my voice in the scriptures, that then talk about the nameless women, that talk about the women who were named but were still marginalized, like the woman who, with the issue of blood, who was ostracized for years because of her ailment, because of society's view of her ailment, and how she had to fight not only for her own healing and freedom, but ended up fighting for the freedom of others by setting an example. When we talk about the woman at the well who had to go and get water during the day, during the hottest time of the day, because that's when other women were not there abusing her and calling her names and calling her out her name and making assumptions and setting the example of still having to fight through trials and tribulations just so that she can have water, and water is life, and how she happened to come across a man named Jesus, who told her, I know all about you, yet I still see you as a human being. If it weren't for the women, because then she was able to go back and affirm who she is and affirm her stance and her lot in life, and still be honored and revered as a human being. If it weren't for the women, if it weren't for this feminine energy that comes up and shows itself in all beloveds, because we all have the access to this feminine and masculine energy that is not binary, that is not men do this and women do that, and women don't have control, shouldn't have control over their bodies. And there was a time not too long ago in some people's lifetimes that women could not vote. And now we want to turn back the hands of time and dehumanize the women, forgetting that if it wasn't for the women's suffrage movement, if it weren't for womanism, if it wasn't for particular Black feminists, that we would not be here with the ability to speak out and the agency to speak up and to own who we are and to honor who we are as human beings first, as Black women, as divine Black women, not necessarily in that order. But if it weren't for the women, if it weren't for the women that have to deal with Black maternal health issues, who are dying giving birth, whose babies are dying after being birthed, if it weren't for the women that stood up and said, no, these numbers are skewed, the access to health care is discriminatory, and we are going to fight for our lives, literally and figuratively. So, Mackenzie Scott just gave $2 million to a Black maternal health organization. I just want to posit Soul to Soul Sisters here for a moment. When Goldman Sachs gave us $1 million, I invite Mackenzie Scott to do the same thing for Soul to Soul Sisters, where we are paying equitable pay. We are fighting for health care, because even in our health care, we are fighting for the right to have an abortion. We are fighting for the right to have access to IVF, which is in vitro fertilization. We are fighting for reproductive justice. We are at the Capitol day in and day out to talk about joy is our birthright. We are offering Facing Racism so that white people will have the tools and be able to look to themselves and say, what must I do to right the wrongs of my predecessors? I use the word predecessors and lineage intentionally, because an ancestor for me is someone that has contributed to this life and is healing and still possibly still healing on the other side. If it weren't for the women who are leading in this Facing Racism cohort, this Facing Racism experience, bringing our own lived experiences into a white narrative to dismantle those that which make assumptions about me because of my hair or my dark skin, who make assumptions about me because I grew up in the Wagner Projects, I grew up in Harlem, and make those adverse, negative, dehumanizing assumptions about me. And now I show up unapologetically, fully in all of my Blackness in front of this white audience to say that we will not be dehumanized, we will not be marginalized, we will not be ignored, we will be heard, and it's up to you to fix this problem that you created called racism. Yes, race is a social construct. I understand that, but it has also evolved into a part of our culture. Let me speak for myself. For my culture, when I identify as Black, I am tapping into the Audre Lorde, who is another one of our beloved ancestors, if it wasn't for the woman, who said that the personal is political. Yes, the personal is political. So I come before you as a Black woman, as a socio-political stance, to say who I am, to be inclusive of all Black beloveds of the African diaspora. Because if I say African American, then I am forgetting about my Caribbean beloveds, my Brazilian beloveds, my Puerto Rican beloveds. I am ignoring those that are not here in America but are a part of the Black diaspora. So if it weren't for the women who are continuously placed in small numbers in this very same podcast arena, if it weren't for the women who keep producing podcasts, continue to insert their voices into this narrative, if it weren't for the women, where would we be? where would we be? We were birthed by birthing people. We were nurtured by nurturing beloveds. We have set standards and set ideologies and set Afrofuturistic beliefs and ideas so that we might tap into ourselves for our own liberation and not wait for genocidal, racist, white supremacist leaders to do it for us. Because if we wait for that to happen, beloved, that will never happen. So we must look to ourselves for our own liberation and then birth that liberation into existence. How do we do that? We do that communally and collectively, for we know that healing and liberation happens in community. Beloved, why does it happen in community? Because we are souls. We are souls housed in this temporal body. We are energy that shares sources from one another, just like trees have this symbiosis going on underground, and the roots and all of that look all messy and entangled, but births beautiful trees that help us to live as we help the trees in nature to live. So we must do this healing and liberation work in community and by honoring the women that have set and paved the way, like Fannie Lou Hamer, who said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Or those who question, ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman because of my energy, because of my soul power, because of my nurturing, because of my intellect, because of who I choose to show up in the world? Ain't I a woman if I believe that what I was designated at birth is different from my energy, so I'm showing up in my feminine energy? Ain't I a woman? If it weren't for the women right now who, when they're at the Capitol, are holding up signs talking about end the genocide, charge people with war crimes. That's what we have the power to do, but yet we're using our power to further destroy, kill, take over, marginalize, move. We want to invade and conquer. We want to colonize. That is not what our power what is supposed to be for. It became that because white people, white thought, white supremacists thought, racists thought that it would be the only way to go in order for them to hold on to this false sense of power. So, beloved, as we close this moment together, my charge for you is to think about if it weren't for the women. And I understand that there are challenges with some of us don't have beautiful relationships with women. Some were triggered or abused, or what can we learn from that? How can we then honor what comes out of that? You know, what good can come out of these things so people aren't renting space in our minds and in our souls for free? Well, who can we tap into that would give us the nurturing that we need, the hug that we need, the love that we need, the voice to speak truth to power, the strength and the courage to stand flat-footed when they say that we should not speak, let alone preach or stand in somebody's pulpit? Who do we need to tap into to then share that energy so we too can say, if it weren't for the women, I am here. If it weren't for the woman, I would not be here today. If it weren't for our Black beloveds who identify, who emulate, who exude this feminine energy, where would we be? If it weren't for the women, I speak the name of the late Rose Lee Davis. As I started with her, I am ending with her and will continue to feel her presence and to seek her guidance as she did so beautifully while she was on this earth. And now we have an opportunity to even have a greater relationship with my mama on a level that other people can't even see or understand. They may have their own experience, but we as her children, we have an opportunity to let her strength, her love, and her beautiful smile and infectious laugh continue to live in us so that we can move forward and live out the call that we have been assigned to live out. Beloveds, I thank you for tuning in. I thank you if you're listening to this later. Um, you know, oh, Janetta, thank you. I will continue to be well. I will. Oh, to the late Rose Lee Davis, I continue to speak your name. To the late Tina Rose Davis, a beautiful soul who showed up in this world differently, and the world wasn't ready. And the world became a bit too much. So it's up to us to heal the world. I feel like singing, heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. I actually couldn't stand that song. I'm sorry. I just have issue with, sitting piously by like, oh, let's just skip through the tulips. Nah, let's be angry. Let's turn that into righteous anger because too much has happened to us. So Rose Lee Davis, Tina Rose Davis, Barbara Mims, my auntie, we call her TT, all in the ancestral realm, and all others. Y'all can speak those names in your private time. Hey, Dr. Taylor, good to see you. Oh, Reverend Taylor, I think I'm pushing you into doctor. Good to see you. Glad you could. Oh, Reverend Lillian Allen. Oh, if it weren't for the woman, yes, where would we be? So good to see you. Glad you joined. Oh, yeah, let me go through these comments to make sure I didn't miss anyone else. All right. This is Dr. Tad with Tuesdays with Tawana every Tuesday, 2 o'clock, right here on Facebook Live. And right after this, you can find this on anywhere you find your podcast platforms. And finally, just one other celebratory moment as we are inserting joy into this moment. I have been selected as one of the top 70 breast cancer podcasts across the nation by FeedSpot. So, FeedSpot, this is a shout out to you for seeing me, for recognizing me, for honoring me. I don't do this for the accolades. Though that those that know me I love to be behind the scenes. So this is definitely a different platform in stretching me. I love telling my story, not for my self-aggrandizement, but to help others and to shift the white narrative that has been imposed and embedded in us. And so shout out to FeedSpot, FeedSpot. Thank you for honoring Tuesdays with Tawana as one of the top 70 podcasts. I'm listed as like number 14. I don't know if that's in numeric order, but if it's 14, I will take it. Yes, to continue to share. Yes, for sure. Um, yeah, let us all continue to heal and build community one womanist episode at a time. I love you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for sharing. And I hope to see you next Tuesday with another episode of Tuesdays with Tawana. Peace.